So I promised us I was going to do something yesterday. I wanted to differentiate between project, program, and then portfolio, and then operations, right? So I sent a slide to us yesterday that wasn't part of my class. So I'll just run through that slide quickly, and then we will go to what we have to do today. So first, I'll run through a slide that I shared with us yesterday evening. That wasn't part of my class. Then I will also run through the slide of yesterday's class. I skipped 3 slides there because they were more relevant to today's class. So what I'm going to do, I'll take those 3 slides quickly, then we're going to enter today's class. But just to give us an overview, basically today what we want to do is, estimation technique. So let me see if I can run us through the program again, just to give us an idea. So estimation technique is just to give us an idea how to estimate cost and time, on your project. What's the duration you need, and how do you basically managing your baseline? How do I come up with my baselines? How to come up with your baseline? That's just the summary of what we will do today. So I will quickly do a revision of this slide, and we will just move ahead today. Okay, so let me just share this slide. Can you confirm that you can see my slide?
Yes, I can see the slide.
Okay, great. So I have one confirmation. I'll just move ahead. So I'll be quick with this because we have a lot to do today. I just want to revise a bit. In this slide, you see me differentiating between project, program, and then portfolio. Just so in case you come across the terms, it's easy for you to relate with. So now, why I'm starting with this is because of the question some of us asked yesterday, right? About becoming a PMP, certified PMP. So in becoming a certified PMP, there is what a book we usually call it the Project Management Bible for those who've gone through the PMP, training. It's a body of knowledge. It's like a guide that is used as a reference, for most project management, right? Based on some certain curriculum and programs that have been developed globally by PMI. PMI is the Project Management Institute. So it's just good I state that so that you have an idea that what we are doing has a global recognition, right? Now, what's the PMBOK? PMBOK is simply Project Management Body of Knowledge. Project Management Body of Knowledge. Where is the PMBOK? I don't have a sample here I would have shown us. It's those of us are architects. It's something that looks like the NUFET architects data. So when you look at the architects data, that kind of volume, that's what the PMBOK looks like. I think we have up to the 7th or 8th edition now. I can't really say for sure. So it's being updated from time to time. Now, the thing with PMBOK is there is a general agreement that when some certain principles are practiced or are applied, it will increase the chances of success on a project. That is just what the Project Management Body of Knowledge or guide is about. So those of us who will be proceeding to get the certification, I'll tell us, like I said, on our last class, which will be next week, Saturday, I'll give us an idea and a guide, a map, how you can, become certified if you wish to, right? Now, so you will see yourself using the PMBOK. You need to digest that book to be able to pass the PMP exam. So I just thought I should mention that. Then I already defined what a project is. Let me just take us to what a program is. Now, there is project management, there is program management, there is portfolio management, and there is operations management. Like I said, it's not part of the scope of this training, but I want us to mention it so that you can differentiate it if you hear it somewhere else. Now, a program is a group of related projects, and sub-programs that can be managed together or, in a coordinated way so that you can use a shared resources to manage multiple projects. So if you have multiple projects, that are related to achieving a particular objective together being managed, it is called a program. So you don't say the person in charge will not be called a project manager. The person will not be called a program manager, and the project collection in a program must share one common goal. I gave some examples there. This is actually a past training I did. I gave for some example there where we have a project going on, and then the road leading to the estate was affecting sales. So because the road leading to the estate was affecting sales, we needed to take up a road grading project. So it was about, I think, 3 point something kilometer road leading to our estate. We had to grade it. That's another project on its own. Then while we were doing that, we just felt, okay, the project we are starting now, the phase one of it is needs a bit of facelifting. So while we were doing facelifting of the first phase of the project, we were constructing the second phase of the project. Then we were grading the road leading to that project. So it's like 3 different projects, but being managed by one office. Then my office, the project management office, was managing them. So at that moment, we're not doing project management. We're actually doing program management, because we have set of interrelated projects that are being managed together using shared resources. The purpose of program management basically is to take advantage of some kind of shared resources so that you can coordinate your activities, well. So that's program management for you. Then portfolio management. Now, just watch what the difference is now. Collection of projects, sometimes programs, and then operations managed as a group for effective management to meet strategic objective is what we call portfolio. Now, a portfolio, the projects you are managing in a portfolio does not need to be interrelated. So that's the difference now. While the project in a program is interrelated, the project in a portfolio does not need to be interrelated. Portfolio can comprise of so many projects, and it can also comprise of a program. If you have so many projects and some of them are interrelated, that means you have a program and you have projects together, and they are called portfolio. But the only thing is that they must meet the strategic business objective of the performing organization. So you see that the collection of projects, programs, they do not need to depend on each other. I gave a bit of examples there. And I just mentioned a few things for us to note that strategic business objective is created, of course, by either the CEO, the MD, the board, and others. So once they have a strategic business objective, they are permitted to have so many projects, related or unrelated, in one portfolio. So when they put you in charge of that kind of a thing, you are performing the function of a portfolio manager and not a project manager. Now, it's more than what I'm just telling you, but it's a different, concept altogether. For example, you are building houses in some areas, you are building factories in another state, you are building warehouses, Now, this is a portfolio, but it's the same company, it's the same organization, and it's the same office, and you are probably in charge of the department that is managing these numerous projects that are unrelated. Then you become a what? A portfolio manager in that instance. So, of course, operations, I won't dwell more on the operation. Operation is just an ongoing concern, ongoing event, like the HR department, admin department, they keep managing the operations. Operations, whether project comes or ends, operation keeps going because it involves the day-to-day running of an organization, whether project is terminated or not terminated. Now, I like to give this example, right? I like to use this graph. Let me see if I can enlarge it a bit. Now, let me make it smaller. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, now, what I'm trying to do here is, you see there's an organization. I have portfolios there. Yes, portfolio 1, 2, 3, 4. Then I have portfolio 1. I have another arrow separating it into several programs. But check now, under the program, I put operations there. That means portfolio management involves operation management, program management, and project management. But program management only involves multiple projects that are interrelated. Multiple projects that are interrelated. And of course, a project is what? Is an endeavor that needs to be performed within a specific timeline, right? So you have project 1, 2, 3 interrelated under a program. But you can have numerous programs and numerous projects. Like the blue are programs, the purple is an operation, the green is a project. You can have numerous projects, programs, and operations under one portfolio. So we have project management, program management, portfolio management, operations management. Those of us that watch the movie 24, I just use it to illustrate. It helps me to just illustrate. It's into episodes, it's into seasons, and it's into, a portfolio. The entire 24 is a portfolio. Each season is a program. Why? Because it has episodes that are interrelated. So each episode is a project. I don't know if let me see, Mr. Is it Joshua that I said he's a filmmaker, right? If he's in class today. All right, so let me see. Okay, somebody is asking, can MS Projects handle program management? Yes, it can. Yes, it can handle program management. So that's the answer to the question. So if you understand the way the movie was done, each episode is about 24 minutes. So each episode is actually a project. Why? Because it has its own budget, it has its start time, it has its end date. So each episode, when they go to the scene to shoot each episode, it's a project because it has a budget, it has timeline. But because every season has interrelated episodes, one season is like a program with numerous projects underneath it's being managed together. So, all right, I believe that's clear enough. Can you still see my screen, please?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great. So let me just move ahead and wrap up on this. Now, I said I was going to talk a bit about the project manager yesterday. Mr. Wesley, you are raising your hand. Mr. Wesley, you are raising your hand. Do you have a question?
Oh, sorry. Instead of talking.
I didn't hear you.
You asked a question and it was my way of answering without talking.
Okay, okay, all right. Now, so let me quickly run through project manager a bit today. Now, the project manager, right, is assigned by organization to lead the team that will achieve the project objective. Now, there was something else I didn't talk about yesterday. A project manager usually must be appointed in the early stage of a project because it needs to know how the project was initiated to be able to properly manage it. So if you're going to manage any project, ensure you are there from the start, early stage of the project. As soon as the business case is formed by the business development department and they appoint you as a person who will manage the project, just make sure you are there from the start. Now, you must write and participate in the project charter. Now, a project charter is simple and authorization. It can just be a few lines stating that, oh, so and so has been appointed with the responsibility to discharge everything needed to achieve the objective of this project. It can be as simple as that. or into a contract. It can even be an MOU. That's a project charter authorizing you to manage the resources of the project. Now, the project manager must know and communicate the project objective requirements to other team members. So you don't manage a project that you don't know what the business case is. I want to repeat this again. You do not manage a project that you do not know what the business case is. Simply what gives, is the business going to be profitable? Whether it's a cost benefit analysis you are doing, is it going to be profitable to the client? Is it profitable to the performing organization? You should know why the project is being done, and you should know the dividends that the project is supposed to be bringing. So you must study the business case, and you must communicate it to your team, so that when you are shouting and it looks as if you are ranting on site, people know that, okay, you have your eyes focused somewhere. So that's another thing you should know about a project manager. Now, I talked about skills that a project manager needs yesterday, right? Number one, a project manager needs technical skills. Technical skills is knowledge of your scope, time, like what we are doing now. You are getting, project management is a skill, technical skill that you should acquire to be able to manage a project. Then, of course, leadership skill. These are soft skills that a project manager needs to have. You must be able to motivate your people. You must be able to guide them. When they come and they are not working because probably payment is being delayed, you should have your way of making people work. Then, of course, you should have the industry knowledge. This is what I call the strategic and business management skill. So you must have industry knowledge. So if you are going to manage a project that is about filmmaking, you should have the industry knowledge. If it's about construction, you do not need to be an architect, but you should have a basic knowledge of construction. If you are installing a solar system, have a basic knowledge so that you won't just be at the mercy of the artisans and then the laborers on the site. I circulated all this already yesterday, so I won't go through all this. I'll skip this. There's one more thing I want to show us here. I already talked about all this yesterday. I talked about stakeholder yesterday. All right, great. So I will introduce today's class immediately. Now, as a way of introducing today's class, I am going to project yesterday's slide. I skipped some certain slides, which I will project now. Once I show the slide, I will let us know which all right, it's coming up. Okay, today, our topic today is project estimation techniques. Project estimation technique. And so let me just do a brief introduction of what we want to do today. Then I'll go to the main slide. This is part of yesterday's slide, right? Now, what is an estimate? An estimate is simply a rough calculation of something. Now, let me just let us know why I introduced this course as part of this training. Now, I talked yesterday that one of the most important things you should learn to do as a project manager is to manage your baselines well, or create and manage your baseline. Baselines, like I said, are boundaries, right? Now, if you do not know how to estimate properly, you will not have realistic baselines. I'll take that again. If you do not know how to estimate properly, you will not have realistic baseline. I said something at an event one day. I said sometimes projects do not fail or do not run short of fund because the client does not have money. Sometimes it's because the project manager either inadequately or wrongly estimates either the cost it takes to complete a project or the time it takes to complete a project. So it will look as if, oh, this project is running out of funds. But the real issue then might be that the project manager had wrongly and inadequately estimated, the funds that were required for the project. And so I just felt it's very necessary for me to talk about what it takes and how to accurately estimate. You can have from a rough estimate to very accurate estimate. So I'm going to be showing us about 3 or 4, popular methods that I have used to get estimates. Some of them are rough estimates to quickly come up with an idea, high level. Then while some of them are actually low level, which I'm going to show us today, is the one that is coming up with very refined estimates. Now, an estimate is a rough calculation of anything. Estimation is not only money. You also estimate time, and you also estimate work. So let's just not think that when we hear the word estimate, it's about money alone. No, you can estimate your time, you can estimate your work. So a rough calculation of anything, it can be time, it can be, money, is what we call an estimate. Now, to understand how to estimate properly, I want to just mention briefly here, I'll treat it in a more comprehensive form, as we proceed today. But there is what we call the work breakdown structure. Work breakdown structure is simply a foundation for effective project planning. And what is a work breakdown structure? WBS is a discomposition of our deliverables, the work you have to do. So let me not use a very big word. Yesterday I said project is simply, having a work to do. Any work you have to do that has a start date and an end date, and it has an objective to deliver, it's a project. Any work you have to do, it doesn't need to be construction. So what WBS is saying, the work you have to do, break them down, decompose them into small measurable activities. If you are able to decompose them, what you are doing is that you are creating a work breakdown structure. Most time it's good, as you will see later, to do them in an hierarchical form. When you decompose them hierarchically, it helps you to roll up your estimates, and you have a summary estimate and you can have sub-estimates. So it's the foundation. If you don't understand the work breakdown structure, you will not be able to accurately estimate. So let's note it well that before you start any estimate, make sure you have a WBS, a work breakdown structure. I said something yesterday in passing in our yesterday's class. I said if it's not in the WBS, if you are not able to break it down, that means it's not part of your work. Do not waste resources on anything that is not in your WBS. Now, when you are breaking down and you break down to the lowest level where it can be measured and estimated and cost and time can be given to it, it is now called a work package. So a work package is clearly defined. It allows your package to be costed well. I will expatiate on that very, very, shortly. So, of course, that's about estimating. Now, I told you today's class about estimation technique and project scheduling techniques, right? Now, schedules. What are schedules? Project management schedules are you can use tools, you can do it manually, but it just helps you to calculate task durations. So while you are estimating, your scheduling helps you to calculate task duration. Sometimes it's automated, and that's where MS Project will come in our last class, so that you can easily roll up your schedules and your estimates can be summarized. So you need to be able to understand what scheduling is and how to roll up your work package in your WBS. So having said all that, let me stop sharing a bit and just illustrate what I mean by a WBS. Can we see the board behind me? yesterday I was using an example of Mr. Wesley, who is into construction, having a construction to do where you start from foundation and probably do superstructure, right? Superstructure, and let's say roofing. Let's say this phase of his work is stopping and roofing. Now, I told us yesterday that if Mr. Wesley wants to properly manage his baseline, he needs to give his foundation boundary, right? That means, how much am I starting with? How much do I not exceed? What is the start date and what is the end date? Now, but for him to get the start date and end date of the foundation, he may not be able to just do that without first breaking down into various activities. Like I did yesterday, I started by saying he needs to excavate, then he will need to do concrete footing, he will need to do block work, he may need to do weak concrete and fill the block holes with concrete, he will need to do filling, he will need to do hardcore, you know. So Mr. Wesley will not just give boundary to the foundation, he will need to give boundary also to each of these summary activities. Now, what is the work package? I said a work package is the what? Is the lowest level of WBS. Now, why do we need WBS to get to the lowest level? We need to get to the lowest level because it is easier for you to cost or allocate time to if you have broken it down to that small measurable part. If Mr. Wesley wants to estimate the cost and duration of foundation, it will not be as easy as estimating each sub activities. If he discovers that he's even unable to estimate block work as a sub activity of foundation, he may need to further break the block work down to say, okay, something like maybe on site they call it forming, because they believe that the first course that they are forming on the ground, where they will need to use square all the angles and all that, takes longer time. He may need to even, you know, estimate duration for forming separately, estimate the duration of the second, third, and maybe fourth courses of the foundation separately. He may now need to also estimate the cost and time required to do the weak concrete in the block holes separately. Now, if he gets to this level where he can now easily estimate each of the sub-tasks of block work, which is a summary task of foundation, forming and weak concrete and second, third, fourth course becomes Mr. Wesley's work packages. That's why we say the WBS is hierarchical decomposition of your work. You decompose your work. Foundation now has been decomposed. So what are we doing now? We are doing a work breakdown structure. But we cannot just leave them this way until we get to the lowest level of the WBS, where we can easily estimate cost and time, which is the work package. So that's just why I mentioned that. I didn't mention this yesterday, so I thought it was important for me to emphasize, because it was in yesterday's class, that a WBS is a way to break down your work, while a work package is the lowest level you need to get to so that you can easily assign time and assign money to your WBS. As a matter of fact, don't work if you have not decomposed your work into subtasks. It's a bit difficult for you to begin to estimate. All right. Thank you very much. This is 4:35. I wanted to do that in 30 minutes. So Let's go to today's slides proper now. Can you confirm that you can see my slide?
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Yes, I can see.
Okay, so today's class is starting right away. Project estimation and scheduling technique. Project estimation and scheduling technique. So what we are going to be doing today, covering today, is how to master your baseline, avoiding inaccurate and inadequate estimates. So I said earlier, the major reason why people run out of time, your project that you wanted to do 3 months is taking 8 months, or the project stops for lack of funds. Most times it's not because the money was not available, but because the cost was inaccurately and inadequately estimated. So the budget was what? Inadequate. Then you run out of funds. So this course will help you not just master your baselines, that's your project boundaries, but it will help you avoid inaccurate and inadequate estimates. So the first thing you need to know is the most viable of projects or work or endeavor can fail for several reasons. Guess what? Top on the list of the reasons why most projects will fail is inadequate and inaccurate estimates. Now, it is difficult. Now, these are hard facts that I want you to embrace as you go ahead with this class. It is difficult to plan a project without adequately estimating your resources, especially time and cost. There is the aspect of estimating for people. I will get to that when we get to the to this class proper. But especially cost and time, you need to adequately estimate for them. Then understanding projects and project management practice is fast becoming one of the most important skill set, as even the service sectors are, embracing this. So some of the things I'm going to be showing you today will not just help you in construction, it will help you in most things you are going to be doing. I'm going to be using examples of some of the things we introduced ourselves that we do yesterday. Film making, hairdressing, waterproofing solution and materials. I'll give some of those examples. So I will just skip all this and go straight to. Okay, let me just take this slide, right? Project requirements are the most accurate estimates of our baseline with all the available inputs. Now, let me explain this, right? Yesterday, I said that you need, as a project manager, one of your focus should be to meet the objective of your project. That's the requirements of the project. Now, what is your project requirement? Your project requirements are the baselines that you have set for yourself. So if you say you want to do something with 8 million, your job is to make sure from when the first 1 naira is going to be spent to when the first 1 million, to set 1 million, you must keep your eyes on your baseline to ensure that 8 million is not exceeded. That's one of the requirements of the project, 8 million naira spent. If they say they are doing it in 13 weeks, you must also ensure you do it in 13 weeks. So if you are able to achieve accurate estimates, it's easy for you to manage and deliver your project requirements, right? Now, one has to estimate time and all the efforts and resources needed to implement is project successfully based on past data, knowledge, assumptions, and risk. I'm going to be talking about expatiating this, in subsequent slides. So when you are estimating, you don't just estimate, you need to put some things into consideration. It's part of what I will discuss in today's class, right? So, and in today's class, you also learn how to come up with the closest estimate, even in the midst of scarce resources. So what we are going to be doing today is I'll take us through importance of estimation, the basis of estimates, we will look at WBS in a more, elaborate and detailed manner. And then we'll look at scheduling, and then we will close the class. So what's an estimate? An estimate is a rough calculation of something. I've said that before. Estimation is, in simple terms, is the process of approximation, right? The goal of estimation is to get the most accurate and adequate value, whether in time cost or in terms of cost or in terms of schedule. That's your duration. It can be either cost, budget, or it can be time schedule. Don't worry, I'm a bit fast because I want to get to the core of the matter where I'm going to pitch my tent and explain. So I'll share the slide so you can get all of this from the slide like I did yesterday. And then after today's class, I will upload the 2 videos before Monday and share the link with us so that we can watch it before our last class, right? Now, I will skip all of this and just tell us why this class is important, right? I've already mentioned this, so I will not dwell much on this. The reason why we run out of fund is not because there is no money, but because the money required is inadequately estimated. Now, it's impossible to plan your project without accurate estimates. And if you don't have an idea how long a project will take and what resources you need, there is no way to ensure you will have the right people, material, tools available when you need them. The thing is this, if let me just use Mr. Wesley's project again. Maybe on one of his sites, if he's not able to give himself boundary for maybe block work, for example, and maybe the materials are not on ground, how will he know when procurement should supply such materials? So if he accurately and adequately estimates his timing, procurement people will work more effectively because they will know, okay, Mr. Wesley needs this in 3 weeks' time, and it will take him this duration, and they will supply as and when needed. That's just what that point is saying, right? So I will mention this so that can we all mute, please? I'm sorry, I will have to mute everybody. Okay. So I think I've muted. Now, I want to mention the triple constraints. In project management, there is what we call the triple constraints. It is the cost, time, and scope. The idea is that one is always a function. Cost is a function of scope and time. And it also means that when you adjust cost, time and scope will be affected. If your client tells you you are supposed to do XYZ for me, and it comes and said now it's going to be XYZ plus K, automatically it will have an impact on your cost and it have an impact on your time. And it may affect quality if it decides that you must keep your time and cost constant. The rule is very, very simple. If you adjust your scope, get ready for cost and time adjusting. If you add to your scope, your cost will likely go up. If you come and bring down cost arbitrarily, you cannot just say scope must remain the same thing. You must be ready to what? Take something out of the scope, or you risk the quality of the project. That's why we call it a constraint. It's a triple constraint. So if one changes, the other must also change to accommodate the change that you have made to one of them. Now, each constraint provides you with boundaries. So I've already mentioned this. I won't take time on this. A baseline is a fixed reference point. Now, I'm giving a bit of another, how do I call it now? Another side to the definition of a baseline today. Yesterday, I say it's a boundary within which you manage your project. Now, from purpose of monitoring, your baseline is a reference point also. Why is it a reference point? Because you need to compare your project progress with your baseline. I was saying something yesterday that if, Mr. Wesley is supposed to spend maybe 4 million on a project that's supposed to take 4 weeks. And at 1.5 weeks, he has spent 3.1 million. It's a problem. If he does not have a cost baseline, he won't even be able to know if there's a problem. But if he has a cost baseline, he can easily compare the progress of the work with what? With the baseline. So a baseline is not just your boundary within which you manage your project. It's also a reference point to measure and compare your project progress, right? With it helps you to assess the performance of your project over time, right? Now, I'm going to skip all of this for us to read up on our own. Cost estimating, time is another of the 3 main constraints. So I just try to give a little bit of explanation of the trend. Then scope is another triple constraint. Now, let me just talk a little bit about scope. Scope is all the work that must be done to finish the project or deliver a product. Now, if you want to estimate your scope properly, you must break down your work in WBS to the smallest measurable, chunk, which is your work package. So by the time you have 4 main subtasks under maybe foundation, and then you have broken each subtask to like maybe 10 work packages, you discover that you can be having up to 40 work packages in a particular subtask. Then an entire project can take up to 500 work packages. Very complex project, you can have thousands of work packages. Now, if you want to really know what your scope is, what is in the scope and what is not in the scope, where do you go to? Your WBS. Your WBS. So if you remove anything from your WBS, you have made changes to your scope, and it's likely to have impact on your cost and time, whether negative or positive. If you add anything that is not in your WBS to the project, you have added to the scope, and it will ultimately affect your cost and your time. So these 3 constraints, they are referred to the 3 sides of the triangle, right? All right, so let me talk about estimation technique now. This is where I'm going to pitch my tents a little bit, right? Now, estimation techniques, they are the ways you create your project estimates. We've already defined estimates as rough calculation, right? How do you create project estimates? That's what we're going to be looking at now. So this section is simply how to create project estimates, whether it's estimate of time, whether it's estimate of cost. That is what estimation technique is about. It helps us come up with realistic numbers. It helps the project manager to accurately estimate essential elements of the project, right? It can help the project manager to better forecast to clients and more accurately budget for funds and resources. Now, number 1 major estimation technique is what I call the analogous estimation technique. Analogous estimation technique. Now, let me explain this. I want us to pay attention to this explanation very well. Now, analogous estimation technique, right, is used by project managers when you have a client or you have a management team who just calls you and at the early part of initiating a project and say, this and this is what we have in mind to do. What do you think? Now, when they ask you, what do you think? As a project manager who is experienced, this is your best form of estimate. You use it for high-level estimates, not low-level estimates. The first estimate that helps the management team or the client to know whether the project is worth venturing into or not. It is the technique that you use, analogous. Analogous is also called comparative. Comparative in the sense that you have a project that you have done before, and then what they just described of this project is similar to the project you have done before. So you can simply just off your head, just tell them, okay, analogously, I can estimate that this project will take me 8 months. Why? Or would cost the organization maybe 500 million. Why? Because you've done a similar thing to what they just described for 8 months, and it costed you 500 million. Now, let me come again. You have done a similar project that has just been described for 8 months, and it costed you 500 million. So you tell them, if you, okay, let me give an example. We just finished the construction of 248,000 units. Let's assume the cost is 800 million or 1 billion. If Mr. Wesley gives me a call tomorrow and I say, wow, we're about embarking on a project. And I say, wow, what kind of project? And I say, housing estate. And I say, wow, bungalow or story building? And he says, bungalow. I was just like, oh, I just completed bungalows, 248 units. I will not ask him, how many units are you looking at? He will tell me maybe 300 units. I will not say, oh, that's very good. I can say, oh, 300 units. Easily, I can tell him 300 units. If 248 units costed me 1 billion, 300 units is likely to cost you X amount, and I did it over 6 months, for example. So I am analogously giving Mr. Wesley an estimate, a rough calculation of how much it's going to take. But there is something that you need to note here. The project timing has to be close to each other. I'll tell you what to do if the timing is not close to each other. For example, I did the project in 2022. If Mr. Wesley comes to me in 2025 with a project that is similar, how do I estimate it? Now, also, if the project's conditions are similar, for example, I did the project between Abuja and Nasarawa State, somewhere around that area, and the soil condition, the land is relatively flat, it's a bit rocky, and things like that. Once I confirm that Mr. Wesley's site condition is similar to my own, it's easy for me to just estimate. Now, analogous estimating techniques will also let me know, for example, duration. If 248 units took me, let's say, 6 months with, let's say, 10 contractors, I can now tell Mr. Wesley, let's add an 11th contractor since your own is 300 units, and they will do it in 6 months. So that's just what analogous estimating technique is about. To break those 8 months down across tasks and activities to get your lower level estimates. Now, I don't know if somebody has a question yet, but let me just illustrate something. Because analogous estimate, like I said, you will take your bearing from a recently completed similar project that is being described. If it's similar and the conditions are similar, I can easily tell them that, okay, I recently, maybe 6 months ago, 248 units, right? And I did it in 6 months. And I did it with, example, 1 billion naira. It wasn't exactly 1 billion naira, right? So Mr. Wesley will now like to tell me that, oh, are you saying that, okay, with about maybe 1 billion plus, I'll be able to do this. I can now go further to tell Mr. Wesley that, these 248 units, for example, I can divide it into foundation, maybe block work. I can divide it into roof. Because I am a project manager who is experienced, and I have my issue logs, and I kept my record, I was tracking my baselines, I can easily give, yesterday I talked about organizational process assets. This is what you put into your organizational process assets to help you analogously estimate future projects. So I can tell him, can you confirm that the blue color is showing, please? Is it legible?
Yes, it is.
Okay. This is just an example. We will get to the crux of the matter shortly. I can say that, for example, I spent maybe 300 million here. That's from my record. I can go back to my record after my closeout meeting. Yesterday, I told us that you don't finish a project without a proper closeout. During the proper closeout, one of the things I say you should do is to update your issue log before you pack it. You can also update your change requests. Any change that was made, I have those records. So that's why it's easy for me to analogously give a rough estimate. So while closing up, I can also take a look at all my baselines again. If I said foundation was supposed to take me, maybe I was supposed to spend 289 million, but finally I spent 300 million, I need to note it somewhere that there was a variance of maybe 111 million, right? Somewhere, or 11 million rather, somewhere. So I'll take a note of all that. The reason why I'm taking note of that is to build my process asset. We call it organizational process assets. If I don't, for every project that I have my closeout report. In the closeout report, I have every changes that was made. I have the issues that were raised. I have every risk that we were able to mitigate. I have the failures and I have the success factors, right? And I have the number of artisans I use, the number of resources, the number of contractors for every project. I have it documented. This helps me to analogously estimate. So let's say I spent on the block one, let me just say I spent 200 million. I'm just doing this roughly. Then let's say on the roofing, let's say I spent 250 million. On the finishing, let's say I spent, let's say another 250 million, right? 2, 4, 6, 9. Then maybe 50 million was for maybe other things, external work and all that and all that. Is it more than 1 billion? 2, 4, 6, 900. Yes, okay, so I don't need this 50 million, right? So now it's easy for me to just ask the person who wants to give me project and say that, oh, if it is going to be 248 units and they are all going to be bungalows, because I have done it before, I can do it in 6 months with XYZ budget. Foundation, prepare for this. This, prepare for that. So what I can now do, like I told you, if I did it in 2022, for example, and I know that maybe inflation on material, for example, materials are not constant. I can just quickly do an average. How much was my cost of material? Then how much is cost of material in 2023 or 2024? Let's assume it's about maybe 18%, for example. So I can now probably liaise with my accountants and see how we can build in the inflation factors. If inflation rate between 2022 and 2024 is 80%, maybe inflation was 18% here, and inflation now is maybe 21%. I have a difference of 3%, right? It means I will have to cater for that and then mark up my 1 billion and give to the client. Now, I've not asked for drawing. I've not asked the QS to do a bills of quantity, but already I have a rough estimate. This type of estimate is called analogous or comparative estimate. Do we have any question? Is it clear? Is it clear?
Yes,
hello. Good evening. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good
Yes.
evening.
My question is about changing prices of materials. Now you are comparing it with the work you've done before.
Yeah.
Now, if we look at things, we also know that price do change. The price of materials, the price of labor are changing over time. So how do you handle that?
Okay, great. Now, like I said, you use this type of note for every type of estimation technique I'm discussing with you today. I'm going to be telling you when to use them. You use this type for eye level. Remember, I told you this slide I took us through initially. I said a project manager ideally should be brought in from the very, very start. So this is what we call eye level. There's what we call eye level. When management calls you, I get that a lot. They will tell you, just give me eye level estimate. We just want to have an idea, a rough idea. I shouldn't just cook up figure. I must have it. We are going to see basis of estimate very soon. I must take it from a point of known. So I need to quote something like in the court of law. When they are defending their case, they need to say, because of this, subject to this section, this or this. So what I will now tell management of my client is that based on what I just did, 248 units costed me 1 billion in 6 months. I will now add something like this, but the one we are about to do, for example, is in a maybe waterlogged area. We need to introduce column. It means my 6 months estimate, I will build something on it. But it's good for me to have that general idea. That's analogous. And then I said something here. If you liaise with your accountants, they can actually give you, if you are not a project manager who is good with figures, but if you are good with figures, as a project manager, you should actually be studying the inflation in the market, whether it's building material market, the nation as a whole. You need to monitor the percentage of rise. For example, you can tell yourself, Mr. Walter, I know you sell waterproofing material. You can tell yourself average cost of your waterproofing material in 2022 per maybe kg. I know you may be selling in okay, Mr. Walter, can you just give me, how does your bag come? How many kg? Your waterproofing material, Mr. Walter.
Yes, I get you. I get you.
Yes. How many kg does your bag come, please? Sorry. Okay, you are up. Let's say it comes in 5 kg. And let's say you sell at 10,000, for example. Average cost is what? 2,000 naira per kg, right? In 2022. If in 2023, you are now selling at maybe 12,000 naira, your average cost will now be, let's say 2,400 per kg, right? So analogous estimate is this. I supplied 10 bags. That's okay. You ask the person, what is the, I want to be practical with you now, Mr. Walter. Let's assume you use 10 bags to screed maybe a 2-bedroom flat. This is just an example, a 2-bedroom flat. Now, in 2023 or 2024, you now have another 2-bedroom flat to screed. Analogously, because your client just called you and said, please give me an idea. As a proper project manager, you cannot just tell him, no, let me contact my QS. Sometimes you will eventually contact your QS, but as an experienced project manager, you should be able to give a rough calculation. You just ask your client, what kind of house do you have? You say a 2-bedroom flat, and I want to screed the walls of a 2-bedroom flat. In 2022, you did it for 10 bags. You did 10 bags of 5 kg at 10,000. So that's like you did it, let's say 100,000. But that was because it was at 2,000 naira per kg. Right now, it has gone from 2,000 naira per kg. Instead of 50 times 2,000, you will now just roughly tell the person 24 times 2,000. So while you were doing it for 100,000, you can now tell the person is 120,000. But if you are asked, this is where I want us to be very careful. If you tell your client that to screed this wall is 120,000 with my product, and the client asks you, how now? Don't just tell the person, okay, no, I just guessed. No, you must be able to tell him, The reason I told you 120 is because I did it 6 months ago for 100,000. But then I was selling this bag at 2,000 per kg. But now it is 2,400 per kg. So automatically there's a 20,000 on it. That's analogous estimate. This is before you get to site to go and take your physical measurement. It's good you just have a rough estimate. Now, let me tell us why I use analogous estimate. In short, as a matter of principle, right? I use 3 methods of estimates and I compare. And I found out in the past that I will have to call our QS to say, no, something is wrong with what you just did. And the QS will carry the BOQ again and look at it and say, oh, you were actually correct. The reason is because if I have done a similar project in the past, I will analogously just estimate and have an idea while waiting for the QS to give me the bills of quantity. So if the bills of quantity does not look like something that I have analogously estimated, it's an issue for me. Then I will reject the BOQ and ask it to be redone. If it's redone 1, 2, 3 times and it's giving the same thing, then I know that there is something wrong with the assumptions of my analogous estimate. Now, I don't know whether we are getting me. It's just a good practice. It can be a bit stressful, but it makes you a bit, how do I call it, in charge. Let me put it that way. It makes you a bit in charge. You are not just led on. You don't arrive at the middle or end of a project and you discover that the figures are not working. It's embarrassing to walk to your client and say the QS misled me when you were the project manager. No. Don't say that the figure in the BOQ was what I followed and see where it has landed us now. If you say that, it's inexperience. So what you will do is analogously say that, okay, because I have done something similar, it should be around this range. You can keep it in your belly. But when your QS brings his bill of quantity, you can only note to say that, okay, that's true. It should be somewhere around there, slightly higher, slightly lower, somewhere around there. So that's why analogous estimate is very, very important for every project manager to have an idea of. All right. Can I proceed, please?
Sorry, please, can I ask a small question?
You can even ask a big one.
So
right.
The analogous estimate in essence is kind of like a rough estimate.
A rough estimate, yes.
So it's possible that maybe 50-50, it might not necessarily be correct, because you're saying now that sometimes you might have to do maybe 1, 2, or 3 BOQs. And if the BOQs are not close to what you have, let's say for example, now the BOQs did the first one, did the second one, did the third one, and they somehow are closely related in terms of numbers, but your analogous estimate is very far. The margin between your analogous estimate and the estimate from the BOQ is very far. Is it possible now that your analogous estimates could be way out of or wrong?
Now, most times, right, when analogous estimates, from my own experience, when my analogous estimates are very far from the QS's BOQ, it means there are some certain assumptions that I made that may not be correct. For example, analogous estimate, like I just said, sometimes you may want to build in inflation factors. So you may have wrong inflation data. That's number one. Then number two, reason why your analogous estimate may be wrong is if, now, like I told you, analogous estimates, I get them from my closeout documentations. How much did I set out to spend? How much did I actually spend? I document it. I will not undermine the fact that sometimes during running a project, some wasteful ventures may have occurred that may have given me wrong figures. So that is the right time for me to now check. For example, let's say they were supposed to use 10 bags of cement, for example, and maybe through some wasteful kind of thing, they now use maybe 15 on each German floor and I did 248. Can you imagine what the variance of 5 bags multiplied by 248 times maybe cement 9 is 5,000? You can imagine what it may be. So those are certain factors. But like I said, I should be able to identify those risk factors and state it. But generally, what I'm trying to say here is when you want to embark on a project, it is good for you to first analogously have a rough idea of what this is going to cost you. It helps your client or the performing organization to say that, yes, we are equal to the task, we are able, we are not able. Now, well, I'm going to show you some other estimation techniques that works together with analogous to now refine your estimate, right, to the most accurate level. But this one helps you to just say, so that you don't waste time, deploying resources only to now discover that, you are not able to. For example, if you have paid a QS and they have done some kind of professional works and probably you discover that something that you just have maybe 500 million is costing 2 billion, you have just sunk some cost. But if you have an experienced manager who gives you an analogous idea of it, you can say, oh yes, why not? My pocket can take it. I should be able to embark on this. So that's actually the essence. It is not good to deploy to site with an analogous estimate. So maybe it's okay I say that. You cannot deploy to site with an analogous estimate, especially on very large projects. But for a very small project, I've done it. I'm going to give you an example later. You can do it for very, very small projects. You can mobilize that with analogous estimate. In short, some clients will actually tell you that you don't need a QS, just do this. I'll talk about that later. It's part of the scope of the class. So maybe what I'll do, let me finish all the estimation techniques and then I'll take questions before I continue. That's what I'm going to do. So that some of these questions you are asking will be answered once you see the next two types of techniques. Now, let me go to the next one. It's called parametric estimating technique, right? Parametric estimation technique uses past project data. Past project data. The only difference between parametric and analogous is that parametric is a bit more refined because it prorates. It prorates. It prorates. Now, let me give an example. I'm thinking of a live project to use as example now. Okay, so let me unshare my screen. Let me unshare my slide so that you can look at the board a bit. Like I said, parametric estimate uses past record. Analogous also uses past record, but this is the difference. This is the difference. Let's say I'm mobilizing to a site that is about to do terrace housing. Now, let's say I just completed a 4-bedroom terrace, right? A 4-bedroom terrace of, let's say 3 floors. 3 floors for, and all the floors, each floors of, let's say 180 square meter, the total floor. And let's say I completed it for, let me just use 50 million naira. Parametric is a bit more refined in the sense that if Mr. Ini, so let me use you now, Mr. Ini, because you asked the last question. If Mr. Ini calls me now that I want to do a 4-bedroom terrace, I will not ask Mr. Ini, 4-bedroom terrace, okay, 4-bedroom terrace, can I see what the design is? So for this, if I want to use this parametric, I will ask for the design. What I'm looking for in the design is this. This is what I'll be looking for in the design.
Is a footprint.
I'll be looking for the footprint. Yes.
Amen.
Right. Now, when I get the footprint or the area, what will I do? I will go to the one I just completed and do 50 million divided by 180. Who has calculated?
Is it every day you'll be going out to buy something? Yesterday night, the same thing. Can't you just buy what you want?
I am muting you, Madam Oriako. So, who has done that for me? 50 million divided by 180. 50 million divided by 180 square meter. Is somebody on it? Can you hear me?
That's 277,000. Hello? That's 277,000.
277,000 naira, right?
777.78.
Okay, great. So this is can you see? So this is what I am going to document. Thank you very much. This is what I am going to document in my closeout report. When I'm closing for this my project, 4-bedroom terraces, I will just say that, wow, this building I just did, I did it at 277,000 naira per square meter. Wow. But this is actually high. They are just rough estimates. So, Mr. Inis project, I want to do a rough estimate of how much it will cost him to build it, right? I can just easily just say, oh, let me see your drawing. Oh, this is your terraces. Oh, it's a bit smaller than my own. It's 120 square meter. When you add all the floors, this is all the floors have been added. Maybe ground floor, first floor, and what? Second floor. Total is what? 120 square meter. So what do I do to give Mr. Ini a rough estimate? I will just go ahead and say 277,000 naira multiplied by the area of his own design, which gives me what? 33.33. So Mr. Ini's project is approximately 33.3 million naira, right? So I will now tell him, oh, for each of your terraces, just budget 33 million naira. So if he's doing 100 units of that, it means he's looking at what? He's looking at 3.3 billion naira as his project cost, approximately, right? The same way, if let me see, is Mr. Joshua in class today? Mr. Joshua, the filmmaker, is not in class today. The same way, if you have done, okay, let me just mention it so that when he's watching the video, he will see it. If he has maybe shot a film that has maybe 100 scenes, for example, and he spent 15 million to shoot the movie, and is asked to come and shoot another movie that has maybe 27 scenes, he can be, before he sits down to do that work, that tedious work of giving every nitty-gritty of what it takes to just and start scribbling on paper and creating documents for the client, he can just do a rough and not say, sorry, this thing, because I did maybe 100 scenes, I shot it for about maybe 50 million. It's likely that this 27 scenes, what we will do is he will divide 27 million by 100 scenes. That's an average cost of a scene. Now, you will now multiply by the number of scenes in this present movie. It will give him a rough estimate of how much it will take to shoot the movie. Now, most times, right, let me say this. Most times, if the project manager does proper documentation, most times parametric estimates are correct because it gives you cost per square meter area. That's one. If project managers do accurate documentation in whatever you are doing, even in this filmmaking of Mr. Josh, right? He can just document an average cost of shooting a scene in a movie. He can have it in his archive. When somebody wants him to do a job, all he needs to quickly give the person a rough estimate is to say that, okay, I can quickly give you a rough idea. If your scene is 200 scene, average cost per scene is maybe 10,000 naira. You can just multiply 10,000 by the number of scenes. So most times parametric estimate comes handy. When you have a project, for instance, Mr. Wesley is a construction person here. Because I'm a construction person, let me just give them this advice. A construction person here. Let me show Mr. Sukomi is a construction person. Mr. Ini is a construction person. Madam Moriaku is a construction person. Mr. Theophilus does construction. So Mr. Johnson does construction. I want to beg you, for every of your project, make sure you have documents that shows the cost per square meter. Both your construction cost per square meter, your sales cost per square meter. Those two figures should always be handy in your head. If I'm running on a project already, from the budget that the BOQ, the first thing I will do is to divide my cost by the total area. I will know average cost per square meter. If I'm done with the project, I will divide what I used to execute that project. I will divide it by the square meter area. It will tell me how far I am from what I am supposed to be. So your baseline can come in different form, even in cost per square meter. So let me tell you something. So if you do a duplex for 100,000 per square meter on one side, and you go to another side and do 150 per square meter, you should quiz yourself and want to know why. If there is a reason, I'm not saying it can't happen, but you should also know what that reason is. It's very dangerous for you to succeed without knowing how you succeed. It's like luck. You just stumbled into it. So next time you can't repeat your success. You can't even predict your success. So parametric estimate helps you predict things when you document it, prorated from past projects. Let it be a practice. It will help us a lot. Now, imagine your company builds houses. Parametric modeling could take the cost of all past projects, divide by each project square footage to come up with average cost per square meter for the home. Then you multiply by number of the planned footage of the current overall project. All right. So if you have any question on this, just note it down. I will come back for question time. Can we mute, please? Yes. Okay. So Mr. Obong, Mr. Shaibu, don't worry, I'll look for practical ways to illustrate your kind of job, since I have an idea what everybody does as I go ahead in the class. Now, the next estimation technique is what we call the top-down. I will use this to buttress my answer of Mr. Ini's question. Now, let me just show you what the top-down estimate is. The top-down technique assigns an overall time and cost for the project and then breaks it down into discrete phases, works, tasks. Don't worry, I'll show this on the board. I'll explain it. If a client tells you that the project has to be done within 6 months, a top-down approach allows you to take the overall timeline and estimate how much time. Okay, good. So let me stop sharing my screen now, and then let's look at the board. Let me go back to the board a bit. Top-down. Mr. Ini, are you on? Can you just unmute yourself? Let me just be sure you are on. I want to.
Yes, I'm here. I'm hearing you.
Okay, all right, great. So now, this top down, right? I don't know if you have met a client before who tells you, I want a 3-bedroom and I have 5 million, and you must do it. Now, like I said yesterday, sometimes you realistically tell them what is realistic and what is not realistic. But some other times, you sit with your client, right? And then you look for how, or your QS, you look for how to balance cost. Now, let me tell you, let me just go this way, and I will explain top down. let's assume I meet a client and he says, I want to do an estate and I want 50 units in the estate. And maybe I just recently did 200. I just recently did 200 bungalows. I just recently did 200 bungalows for 1 billion. So I can tell him, my client now, that your 50 bungalows, you should go and budget what? 250 million, right? Am I correct? Yes, I am. I will tell you to go and budget 250 million. What if my client shouts? I say, what? No, I don't have 250 million. Can't we do this 50 bungalows for 200 million? You know what the client has done? The client has given you an envelope, 200 million, to do 50 bungalows. Sorry, can you confirm if the red, if this red is not reflecting? Is it showing? Can you see it? Is it legible?
It's legible.
Okay. So analogously was how I gave the client 250 million. The reason is because I just did 200 bungalows using 1 billion on an estate. And I now gave him a rough idea that if he's doing 50 in his own estate, I will talk about basis of estimate later, how that the site conditions must be similar, the environment must be similar, the regulation authorities and laws must be similar. I'll talk about that later, but this is just high level. Now, I have analogously estimated this, right? But the clients now went ahead and said, even this my analogous estimate is not going with it, that it doesn't have that kind of money or budget, and he has to do 50 million. So what has he done? He has given me an envelope. So what kind of estimate am I going to use? This is now a top-down estimate. Now, Mr. Wesley, Madam Moria, for all those of us in construction, yeah, this will be useful to you. Mr. Sukomi, Mr. Johnson, just watch what I am going to do for this, my client. So this is what I'm going to do for my client. I may not bother to, I may, if it's not a project that will require me to get a QS to seal my work, I may not bother to get a QS, because why am I bothering to get a QS when the client already gave you an envelope, right? So this is what I will do. I will go back to my project. It is 200 units. And I spent 1 billion. So I will go back to my close out report and see how the project performed. I will say for this 200 units, foundation, let me just do it, block. I did roof, and I did finishes. I think the example I used before was 300, 200, 250, and 250, right? Let's assume this is this. I will now create a new column. This was what I documented at the end of the project. During my closeout report, I documented this and I filed as part of my project closure for this project. This is the file for this project. Open this file, you will get the details of the transaction of this project. I filed everything there. Now, I will pull it out. Why? Because I have an envelope. Watch what I am going to do now for top down. I will now tell the man, 300 over 1 billion is what? 300 million over 1 billion. How many percent is that? Can somebody just help me work that out quickly? I know this is 25%. I know this is 25%, right? This is 20%. Am I correct? This is 30%, right? Am I correct? Can one or two people
Yes, you are. Yes, you are.
If you are sure you are in a quiet place, just leave yourself unmuted so that we can flow a bit. So this is what I'm going to do for for this my client now. Because this is likely to take, let's say, I'm just estimating, let's just say we use 1 month. Let's say we use 2 months, we use 1 month, and we use 3 months. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is 7 months, right? So I'm going to just tell him that for his own project now, because he wants me to help him manage his project, I will tell him for foundation, give me this amount. What's 30% of 200 million? 60 million, right? Am I correct?
60.
Then
Yes.
40 million, right? Then this one would be what? 50 million, right?
50.
This is 50 million. Can you see? I've not gone to QS, but I have told the amount that your foundation is going to be 60. Now, let me tell us something there. As a good project manager, if you carry your team along, that's why the slide I shared before now, I say a project manager, when you are engaged early in your project, kindly get your team on board and that's one thing I do in my office. If I am out of my office, I will always want someone in there who knows everything I know about the project. The reason is because they understand you a little bit. And because they understand you, they know where the project is supposed to be going. So I don't embark on any project without gathering the team to either give them a training, an orientation, a kind of meeting that can even last 2-3 days, just to make sure it's not brainwashing now, it's like indoctrinating the project into them. Now, if I do all that, if you take your time to do all that, and then you document, there is every chances that your analogous and parametric estimates will be close to what a QS will give you. The chances are almost, I can't say what the percentage is, but the chances are quite high. I'm saying this because I told you yesterday my profile, I said that I've done over 1,800 units in Lagos and Abuja. This 1,800 units in Lagos is about 2 projects. In the Abuja Nasarawa environment here is about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 projects. So these are cumulatively 8 projects that I can almost tell you that my parametric and analogous estimates are always on point because of my documentation and my closeout report. So my clients can just go and provide 60 million in the first 1 week, 40 million in the next 2 weeks, 50 million in the next 1 week, 50 million in another 3 weeks. So the client is now happy that I'm able to give him something like this. Now, what if the foundation one does not cost me 60 million, right? This is where I will now sit with the client and say, this is 60 million, or probably plus, I don't know, maybe 3% additional inflation that I probably increase from maybe 18 to 21. Usually, the difference won't be much. The difference won't be much, and it will not scare or alarm your client. If a client says, I want to spend 200 million, it means he wants to spend around 200 million. If you come and tell the client your 200 million has turned to 300 million, there may be trouble. But if you tell the client your 200 million has turned to 200 million or maybe 201 million, do you understand? It's still around 200 million. So you actually have chances of, building this up a little bit because you did not do a bills of quantity and you are doing a top-down estimate. So what we are doing now is that we have the top and then we are now breaking it down. The same way, like I was doing with Mr. Wesley's project, where I carried the foundation and I broke Mr. Wesley's foundation into what now? Into excavation. I broke it into maybe a second, the same method.
Your head is hurting. And I go home with the paracetamol. I'm gonna tell mom first.
Sorry, Mr. Wesley, I have to meet you. The same method I use in arriving at this 60 million, I can use to just spread this 60 million around my excavation. Now, let me tell you something. Even if your client does not ask you to do it, learn to do it. The way I'm doing it now, I'm building up the third class gradually, because this is what is going to form the crust of our class in MS Project. Learn to do this by yourself, whether the client asks you to do it for him or not. Even if the client gives you the 600 million upfront, if the client gives you the 600 million upfront, you as a good project manager, you need to carry this foundation that they're giving you 600 million for. You need to break it into, let's say it's about 6 tasks. You need to go and carry this 600 million and say, out of this 600 million, excavation should not exceed maybe 5 million. Tax 2 should not exceed 10. Tax 3 should not exceed 2 million. Tax 4 should not exceed 8 million. Tax 5 should not exceed 12 million. Tax 6 should not exceed 14 million. Things like that. You do that, and then this was 60 million. You can account for it inside there. You can create even an item 7 that's maybe like a contingency reserve that is based on past data that can be objectively, so that you don't have issue with your accountants and your auditors. You must be able to objectively tell them why you have a contingency reserve of maybe 3%. You can just tell them that, when we did this, come and see what the contingency. You have your past data, so they can say that, oh, it's true. You spent over by XYZ%. So you need to create a contingency reserve of XYZ%. Now, let me tell us something as project manager, right? When you have your project budget, 200 million, don't always release the entire 200 million into your construction. The reason is because, from my own personal experience, I see that most times, if you do not have a reserve, you will end up using money that is meant for something for another thing. So, from experience, always ask yourself, what are the variations I have had from projects? If you have never managed a project, it's fine, I can understand. But when you have done 1, 2, you should always ask yourself, by what percentage did I have variations? Usually 1, 2, 3, 4%. Now, why variations are not very, very encouraged? Sometimes it's actually a fact for a project, but they can be very, very meager. So what you should now do is carry your variations of past projects and tell your accountants that if this is our project budget, remove 3% of this and keep it as contingency reserve. Nobody will question it that you just brought it from your head, because you brought it from experiences that you have had in past projects. So this is a top-down estimate, and this is how it relates with analogous estimate. Can we as well get a clean shot of the board? Can you unmute and explain? I don't understand your question. Mr. Deji, you're asking the question, can we get a clean shot of the board?
Means the board is not too clear, sir.
You say what?
The board, the letters on the board is not too clear.
I can't hear. Somebody's talking. A lot of reflections on the board. Okay, a lot of reflections on the board. Okay, okay, just let me see if I can. That's fine. Is it any better? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay.
But there are still reflection on the board, sir.
There's a window somewhere that's open.
Okay, let me see. If I close this window, hope my room will not be too dark. But let me try. Let me try. See.
It is fair now. It is
Is it better?
better. It's better. It's better.
It's better. Madam Oriako, can you confirm that
Yes.
it's better?
It's better.
It's better. Okay. So if I close the last window, my room will become dark. So Mr. Deji, is that what you mean by can we get a clear shot of the board? Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Deji, I want to understand what you mean by okay, let me just proceed, right? Okay, so top-down estimate. I think I'm done with that. So if you have questions, you can just keep it for me. So that's what I mean by get overall cost, then assign it to phases work, and then it's usually based on what? On your work breakdown structure. Like I took example that even the foundation, you need, if you have set task 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, you need to also spread the budget for foundation across all the tasks so that you do not exceed your budget. And then if you exceed your budget, you may not have the money to complete the rest part of the foundation. Can you see my slide?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So in summary, if a client or your organization tells you, I want a project done within 6 months, a top-down approach allows you to take that overall timeline and estimate how much time you can take for each activity within the project and still complete it on time. Now, just in case somebody wants to ask, what if the time and the cost the client is giving you, you are unable to achieve it? What if you are unable to achieve it? Madam Oriako, your hand is raised. Okay, is that a mistake?
That was my question.
Okay.
I was raising my hand to ask that question.
To ask this question I just asked now. Okay, you can see that I'm in the spirit. Okay, let me answer that quickly. Let me see use the example of this project, right? Let me use the example of this project. Let us say the client has given you this, and after you have broken this, you tried putting this in, and the boundaries, your realistic boundaries is this. But what the client has given you is this, right? if it is time that you have the boundary issue with, what you will do is, I'm going to teach you that later. I think it's part of either to this class or next week class. I'll check whether it's in this class. There's what we call schedule compression technique. I'm going to teach us that. If we have time today, we'll do it. If we don't have that time today, we will do it the day we are doing MS project. We actually can't teach MS project without teaching schedule compression techniques. So if it's time that you have issue with that the client has boxed you into a time that is not realistic, you use your schedule compression techniques. What does schedule compression techniques mean? Number one, it's either you are adding resources. You either add resource to compress your schedule, or you rearrange or reorder your activities. Rearrange or reorder your activities so that activities that are meant to be maybe completed using this relationship. Maybe you're supposed to, you plan to finish one before you start another one. You may now begin to do them either in parallel or you overlap them, just to ensure that you meet the requirements of your client without putting the project at a risk. Yes, without putting the project on a risk. Now, then, if it is cost that you have issue with, I told you about the triple constraint, right? That cost, time, and scope, they are interwoven. So if you add to scope, you will most likely add to your time and your cost. It means if you want your cost to go down, you need to go and adjust your scope, remove something from scope. And I'm going to give you a practical example now on our project. The project that we completed recently, it's 248 units. It was 248 units. Guess what we had to do? Out of this 248, 185 was finished. 63 is what we call carcass or shell. But Oriako, are you with me? Architect?
Yes.
All right.
I am.
So, do you know why it happened this way? We started, I can't remember, but I think we started this project when cement was 1,800 or 24. I can't remember right now. We started when it was 18 or 24. I can't remember. But I think by the time we were about ending, cement had got to into, is it 3.6 or something? Something of that nature. So the money that was supposed to complete 248 units for us, I'll just give an example for purpose of my illustration. Let's say it was about 800 million. Let's say it was about 800 million, right? Now that cement, a major part, has had about 50% of the cost added. And we couldn't go back to the client to say this 800 million is going to 1.2 billion. No, well, not exactly like that, but I know it was a significant increase. So what we did was very simple. After we have done the analysis, we now wrote to the client and said, with this 100 and 800 million, we will now be able to complete 185 as finished house. And we have a market for finished houses in Abuja. Those of us who work in the real estate sector, you know it. Then we also have a market for, so it was an opportunity that we have to take so that our project does not fail, our project does not stop. Because there are actually clients who prefer to buy their house as shared carcass. They don't want to take the trouble to build it from foundation, but they want to finish it to their own taste. They want to put their POP, they want to put their satin paints, they want to do their wall decoration themselves, they want to float, they want to go and buy their tiles from Italy. We've had projects, right, that we finished houses and we sold. When I came back to the project, I couldn't recognize the houses because some clients will pull out tiles that you spend millions to put. Some clients will rake your tiles away, rake your paints away. We've had clients who will remove our ceiling and do another one. We now say, okay, opportunity. We wanted to finish this house. Money is no longer enough. We now went back to the client. I said, this is what we are advising. Let's finish 185 and the balance of the money, let's do the 63 as carcass share. We looked at the figure, it could work. And there were market, there were people who were willing to buy share and finish it up by themselves. That was how we ended the case. So you can now, so in order not to affect cost now to take it up, what did we do? We went to the scope of the work. That means we went to our WBS now and we removed some work packages that has to do with finishing 63 units. We removed them. So you can go to your clients and say, you are giving me 200 million, you want a 2-bedroom bungalow, no problem, I'll give it to you. By the time I did this project, your 200 million would have been able to do. But because of cost of material now, realistically it's 250 million. But if you say it's 200 million you have, no problem. How about let's finish it outside and let it look complete inside, but the ceiling may not be there. We can finish the toilet. We may not paint the wall. Something like that. You go back to the client and you talk about it. These are things that I've done. Or you can even go and tell the client, okay, right now we wanted to use POP. What if we go to Nigerite? Nigerite have very fine cement fiber materials now that looks like suspended ceiling, decorated, and it's very nice too. And it's cheaper than POP. How about exploring that? You wanted to use maybe a dual flush WC. How about using a single flush WC? Now you go back to the client until you are able to tell the client that, okay, for us to meet this your 200 million, let's make a compromise of some work packages. All right, does that answer your question, Architect Oriako?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. Good. So I will go to the last one I'm going to expatiate on, which is the bottom odd estimate. After this, I'll just rush through the other ones so that we can wrap up, this slide. Now, bottom estimate is the best and most accurate form of estimation technique. And I advise every project manager, even if you are doing analogous and all that, before you mobilize to site, take your time to do bottom-up estimates. Bottom-up is what engineers do when they give you a bills of engineering measurement. We call it BEME. It has other names, but we call it BEME. BEME is more conventional in the built industry. We call it BEME. The engineer will give you BEME. And what does BEME do? BEME breaks the work into some kind of each task, the materials, the quantities, and all that. So it makes your estimation more accurate. Sure, some QS will require that you send a BEME with your designs for them to do estimate. So the bottom estimate is the reverse of top down. While your client is giving you a blanket, figure to do the project, and you are now trying to use percentage of previous job you've done to put figure to it, a bottom up will take the drawing and look at it critically and come up with an estimate. Using this estimate, you start by estimating individual tasks or aspect of the project. You combine all the separate estimates to build up an overall project estimate. Since each activity is being assessed individually, this type of estimate tends to be more accurate than the top-down approach, but it takes more time. Permit me to just show you something. Let me wipe this and then I'll come back again, right? Now, this is top down. Top down looks something like this. You have been given an envelope, right? And then you are spreading it. You are spreading it. You are spreading this envelope to different work packages, right? Right? Top down. Now, bottom up. Bottom up. This is what bottom up does. Bottom up will take what, bottom up will take what I did with bottom up before was that I took foundation, right? I saved my foundation from past record is 60 million. I now say foundation as excavate, foundation as block work, foundation as filling. I now allocate money to each stage of the work. That was what I did. I carried the 60 million worth of foundation and I spread it. But for bottom up, what I'm going to do is I will take the foundation and I will list all the tasks. How? Excavate, block work. After block work, let's say weak concrete. After weak concrete, let's say filling. After weak filling, let's say add core. After add core, let's say concrete work, right? I must have missed some, but don't worry. My foundation footing is not there. Concrete footing. So after excavation, there is footing, right? Now, on some sites, you even treat. Let me not even say on some sites, it's a good practice to always fumigate your foundation for termites. So you may want to put between excavation and footing, you may also want to put an item there for anti-termite treatment. Between your hardcore and concrete work, you also want to put an item there for DPM, damp-proof membrane. You just carry this black polythene, spread it to your foundation to prevent rising down. So you can put all that. So what you will now do is this. You will now carry excavation and say, how much will I spend on excavation? Excavation. You will now say, okay, excavation, the length of the building is 18 meters. Times 1,000 naira per meter is 18,000 naira. Concrete footing, let's say it's 5 cubic meter times, let's say 8,000 per cubic meter. You say it's 40,000. This is bottom up. It takes a lot more time, but what I'm doing now is bottom up. Block work, you can decide to use square area, you can decide to use units of block. Let's say I need 500 blocks on my foundation. I'm buying the block at 300 naira. Plus, I am laying the block, 500 blocks. I'm paying the mason 60 naira. You come with the cost of, let's say, 15 plus 30,000. You have your 45,000. You do that for each of the work packages, the subtasks. After that, what are you doing? You roll up the cost of each of this work package. This cost plus 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 this cost. You may now say my foundation is therefore 48 million naira. That's how you arrive at the cost. Then you do the same thing for what? Superstructure. You did the same thing for roofing. You break your roofing into carcass. You break your roofing into what's the cost of four lines, what's the cost of rafter, what's the cost of fascia board, what's the cost of the noggins, what's the cost of the roofing sheets, what's the cost of the evangels, what is the labor component. You put all that together. At the end of the day, you roll your roof the way you roll your foundation. The roof will be like maybe 30 million. You break your superstructure, maybe 20 million. At the end of the day, 20 plus 30 plus 48 could be maybe 300 million. You now say, therefore, this project AB, has a cost estimate of 300 million. So that's bottom up. Bottom up is what quantity surveyors do. Bottom up is what cost analysts do that do material and labor schedule. Bottom up is what BEME helps you to do, because BEME gives the quantity of each work, quantity of material required for each work. BEME generates it for you. Then from past experience, I'll talk about that later, how to price your labor. You can get your labor code and then you move on. So that's what we call the bottom up. It is the most accurate form of estimation technique, but it is time consuming. Where you do not have time to do bottom up immediately and you need to give your management or the board, I don't know, have you ever been in a situation where there's a board meeting going on and the board, one of the board members just had an idea, or just say that, oh, there is one land somewhere, or there is something somewhere we are thinking of doing. It may not be construction project. What's an idea? And the MD was at the board meeting, and the MD now said, don't worry, let me call our project manager, he's very experienced. Then they will call you to a board meeting where they want to make immediate decision to sign a board that sits maybe twice in a year or once a year. You are now telling them that until you have engaged a QS, you have done bottom up for a project that probably has 1,000 work packages to estimate. You now tell them that, no, give me 2 weeks to get back to you. Board is not sitting again. They need to make the decision right now. You need analogous and you need parametric. Can you see why you need analogous and parametric now? No matter how not too accurate it is. But before you mobilize to site, take your time with your team to do your bottom-up estimate. Please keep your question out on this. I'll just rush up now. I'll circulate this slide. Other techniques, expert judgment. Expert judgment is very, very simple and it's quick and easy. It's like Mr. Ini just picking up his phone and just calling me, hey, Mr. Jonathan, I'm just about doing this now. I know you're on the site doing that now. Please, quick, tell me how much is concrete per cubic meter? And I just tell Mr. Ini, oh, concrete per cubic meter is 20,000 naira when there is reinforcement, and it's 15,000 naira when it's just stone. Something like that. That's an expert judgment. Now, you use expert judgment in conjunction with your bottom up, because all these work packages I ask you to list, it's not every one of them that you should sit down and do. You can just, as you are doing your bottom up, and you have 1,000 work packages that you have to estimate in 2 weeks, you can be calling people. Now, experts does not mean somebody who went to school, an architect, engineer, or a colleague that is professional. No, expert can be a mason. Expert can be a carpenter. Expert can be that unlearned, outside booking laborer that that carries load for you. You may just want to estimate the cost of moving. Maybe you just want to make provision for a granite that was probably dropped at the wrong location, and you need one aboki man to help you move it from one location 5 meters away to another location so that it will be close to the mason's use. You can call that aboki at that moment. That aboki becomes your expert. So you use expert judgment to estimate in conjunction with other estimation technique. Then let me see. I say it's most useful when you are planning a standard project similar to that. So expert can be used in creating top-down or bottom-up, right? So, and like I say, even if you have never done a project and you don't have experience to tell your clients when you are using top-down parametric, you can give somebody a call. And that's why I'm creating some of this training. I'm available for you anytime. You can give me a call when you have any issue on any project. I can be your expert. You can give me a call. Okay, I'm about doing this. Have you done something similar before? Could you please give me an idea of this? Then I'll just give you, and then you just go ahead. Then there's what we call 3-point estimate. 3-point estimate is usually you use 3 parameters to judge. There's what we call the optimistic, pessimistic, and most likely estimate. For example, Mr. Johnson may use 2 days to lay 4 courses of block in foundation. Mr. Guadia may use 3 days. Then architect Oriako may be using maybe 5 days. Do you understand? Now, if I now want to do a rough estimate, I will need to take the optimistic, pessimistic, then what I consider the most likely, and then I'll create that estimate. Now, for this course, right, you guys can call me anytime and book an appointment in the next 1 week, not exceeding 30 minutes. I can brush you through anything that looks as if it's great. So you can ask me more personal questions then, and I can tailor make your class to your particular career or your particular project that you are on right now. If you cannot ask the question in class here, in the next 1 week, just give me a call. We can book an appointment. I can send you an invite, 30 minutes. We trash any gray area, right? So if you need more explanation on 3 points and expert judgment, I can provide them on a personal basis. Now, let me quickly run through basis of estimate. As previously stated, estimate determines how much money and effort, but there are bases, something you must consider. It must be based on the following. Number one, past data and past experience. I won't overflog that. I've said that before. Make sure you don't just tell your client things that are not objective, that are unfounded. If you tell your client it's costing 10 million and it asks you how, make sure you have paper, documentation. You must know how you arrived at the 10 million. Whether it's by parametric or analogous, you must know and say that, okay, I arrived at 10 million because that square meter times 2,000 naira per square meter gives me this. You must have that kind of experience. Then there must be available document and there must be a knowledge. You could tell him that, no, I called one guy who has been managing similar project for the past 10 years. So that's already a basis of estimate. Then assumptions. Let me talk about assumptions. If you are doing parametric and analogous estimate, make sure that you state your assumption. If I have time on our next week class, I will show us some proposal I've done in the past, right? What to clients or to organizations who wants me to help them manage projects. I always have an assumption page, because the time I am doing you a proposal, I will not spend my money to be given to QS to give me a bottom-up estimate. Because for a good QS now in the Abuja area, if you ask them to do an estimate for you, you should be holding between 250 to 400,000 in the kind of work I will do. I won't put $500,000 naira into a job because I need a figure to put in the proposal for my clients. I will use analogous and parametric for you. And as I'm using analogous and parametric, immediately after my estimate and the cost I'm giving you, I will introduce a page I call the assumption page. What do I do in the assumption page? I will say something like, the above costs are based on the following assumptions. Number one, that your project site, the ground is stable and the degree of slope is between 2 to 5%. Why? Because that is what is obtainable in the most recent project I completed. Number two, I will say that the soil is not waterlogged. Number three, I will say when I did a soil test on this project, the bearing capacity was XYZ kilonewton per millimeter squared. I will state my assumptions there so that if you are satisfied with my proposal and you now engage me and pay me for service, and I come to your site and I do a soil test or geotechnical investigation on the site, and the bearing varies too much from what I have stated in my proposal, we will now sit down on the table and say, wow, because of XYZ, we may need to introduce Y16 rod rather than the Y12 that I used in my own previous project. So always state an assumption piece. It should always form basis of your estimate. Then you must always state something like, when I did this project, Nigeria inflation was 18%. I always like to state it there so that clients will be know. When I did this project, I will tell them it was in 2021. I will state the year there. Those are assumptions that you need to state. Then I will identify risks. For example, I did it during dry season. Your own now is going to be done during rainy season. So don't expect my time estimate to be correct like your own if rain disturbs the work. All those kind of things, those are risks I will need to put. Then I will now state that my foundation, for every foundation that I did for 2 days, I used 3 masons. I will state it there. I will just give you all those resources. Those are basis of estimate. Those are things that form your estimate. And like I said, I will now state in that same document, especially if it's a building, I will now state, okay, I said I used 800 million to do 248 units. I will now state the quality we agreed with the client. I will say 185 was finished to so specification with POP or PVC ceiling or cement fiber ceiling. I will now say 63 were carcass finished externally with casement window, but internally was on plaster or on render. Those kind of things saves you stress and gives you a good basis of estimate. What should you look out for when estimating? Ask other people's experience, then put your own experience, at task. Assume resources will be productive for only 80% of their time. Yes, this is very, very important. A mason can come to site. A mason that usually can lay maybe 100 or 150 blocks in a day can come to your site and maybe for some reason, maybe he had stomach pain and 2 hours was wasted. So what I will do is, even if I know a mason can finish a work in 3 days, I will assume that the mason will be 80% productive and add extra hours just so that I am safe. It is just a conventional way of doing things. Just assume that your resources will be 80% at maximum. So if they are able to lay, for example, let me just give this example. Let's assume that my excuse me, I'm trying to. Let's assume that I want to illustrate this a bit because it helps me a lot. Let's assume that my mason can do 120 blocks in foundation per day. And the QS or my bottom up estimates have estimated that I need 2,400 blocks. 2,400 blocks for my foundation. So 2,400 divided by 120 is what? Is what? It's 20, right? Am I correct?
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
So it means it will take one mason 20 days to build a foundation that has 2,400 blocks. Like this is actually a very big foundation. Let me just make it 400. Let's just be a bit realistic. Or yes, can we do 400 or 600, right? Let's assume my foundation has 600 blocks. So it means it will take this mason 5 days. Am I correct?
Yes, you are.
Good. Now, if your clients, this architect Riaku's question, I will also answer here. If the client, now says he does not have 5 days, what will you now tell the clients? This is now very straightforward. You now tell the client, okay, let's use 2 masons that can do this, right? So eventually, if you are using 2 masons, right, it means we can do this in what? 2.5 days. Am I correct? Am I correct, Mr. Wesley?
Yes, you are.
Yes, sir.
Good. What that point is making is this. Assume that there will be 80% productive. What is 80% of 120? 96. 24, right? So 24 is 20%. 80% will be 96. Am I correct? 80% of 120 is it 96?
Sorry, hold on. 96.
Beautiful. So what that point is saying is assume there will be 80% product when you are estimating time. So I will now do 100 blocks in foundation divide by, instead of 120, which is what the mason will do normally. That's what it does. But for in case he falls sick, his labor, something just happened. I will now divide it by 96. 600 divided by 96 gives me what now? If somebody is doing it for me so that I'll be fast.
6.25.
6.25, right?
6.25.
6.25, yeah.
So,
6.25.
yeah, so I will now tell my clients that if you don't want to use 2 mason and you want to use 1 mason because you just want to be paying maybe 5,000 to the mason per day, you don't want to pay 10,000, then get ready to do what? 6.2 days, right? If you say this, it does not have 6.2 days, I'll say let's use 2 masons. We are paying more now. Can you see what I said? The triangle, which is a triple constraint, because we have changed the time, we want to reduce the time by half, our cost will go up because we will now pay the mason more, right? Now, what happens here now? If I'm using 2 masons, it will now be like 3.1, right? Rather than this 2.5 days. You see? So if I'm estimating now and I'm assuming all things are equal, 100% capacity, mind you, masons can come to site, no matter how you are efficiently plan your project, you come to site and maybe your security man overslept and didn't pump water overnight. It has happened to me on the site. And instead of your masons to start work at 8 a.m., the security man started pumping water that morning. And they couldn't start work till 10 or 11 a.m. What happens, Mr. Wesley? And you have estimated this and sent to clients and the board, the CEO, MD, everybody has it. So most times it's just safe for you to assume 80%. So when you save on time, it adds to your feather as a project manager. It doesn't mean you are unrealistic, but you will state all these assumptions and tell your client that we assume 80% this, or we are likely to deliver earlier, right? So instead of estimating 2.5 days, you will now estimate 3.1 days. You can convert it to hours so that it can help you a bit. So that's what that point is saying, that you should just assume resources will be productive. Now, my title says estimation guideline. This is just a guideline. Now, this guideline, like I was explaining yesterday, those of us that want to become PMP, what I'm teaching you may not be what we teach them. Like I said, they will be teaching you tricks of how to pass exams. But what I'm teaching you is tricks on how to be practically efficient on your project sites. That's what from my own experience. So this is what I have done over time. That's why I call it guidelines. So all these things you are seeing here are things that I have done personally and is helping me over time. Now, resources working on multiple projects take longer time to complete tasks because of the time loss is switching between them. So that's a guideline. You may have a very good mason that you want him to be doing maybe drain and one other sensitive works for you. So you need to have that at the back of your mind as a guideline. Include management time in any estimate. You can be, you may have decided to deliver something on a particular day, and then you have the CEO, the MD, some board members, some directors coming that day, and they are toying for 3 hours, and you and your team have to follow them around. If you are doing a sensitive work, you may have to tell them to pause because it requires your attention, right? When they need your attention and you are not there, they will put down. Always building contingency for problem solving, meeting, and all that expected event. Let me just run through this. My time is almost done. I want to leave the last 10 minutes, allow to do proper estimates. Now, all this guideline, you can read this up yourself. If you have any question, like I said, call on me. We can arrange a private one-on-one to discuss that. We are not more than 19 that registered. So, and yesterday we had 16 average in class. Today I have to. So let me just take 16. So I can still do 30 minutes for 16 people within 1 week. If I can't finish in 1 week, I can extend it to 2 weeks. So if you read any of this and it's giving you issue, you can talk to me about it. Now, the WBS, let me run this, read this up. I discussed it a bit earlier on. If you don't understand anything, just give me a call. Let me end with this tonight. Steps to estimation. You must identify your activities. You must divide the activity into tasks that can be measured. Now, let me stop sharing my slide. I want empathy on this. That's why I stopped sharing my slide. If you are breaking your work down, you have a work to do. You have broken it down into 1, 2, 3, and you are finding it's easy or ambiguous to put a cost and time to 1, 2, 3. It means you are not there. It means you should go ahead, like do your project, divide it into 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 2.1, 2.2. The likelihood is that you can estimate this one more accurately and more easily, more accurately, more easily, more accurately, more easily. By the time you roll these 3 up together and add it, you have now gotten a more accurate estimate for 1. Now, if you get to a point where 1.12, you feel it is still ambiguous and can be further broken down, please take your time. Carry 1.1 and do 1.1.1, 1.1.2, 1.1.3. Carry 1.2 and do 1.2.1, 1.2.2. Carry this, break them. The idea is get to the simplest form or where you can easily estimate, right? So you must estimate, divide activities into tasks that can be measured. If it cannot be accurately measured, please divide it further. If it still cannot be measured, keep dividing, keep dividing, keep dividing. Next class, I'll show a sample of a WBS I did, schedule, that I divided it almost into 6 levels. I have 1.1.1.1.1.6, 1.1. Because the project was complex. It ran into over 5,000 tasks, a duration of about 12 months. Some of us have projects that are going to last about 24 months. I know someone here who is going to buy your project very soon that will last 24 months. You are going to have a series of activities. For the timing, you need to break it down into tasks that can be measured. Estimate efforts required to complete the task. That's another step. You must combine effort and tasks together to get your activity cost. That's rolling it up from this is bottom up now. Then you must reconcile and eliminate widely divergent estimates. I will explain divergent estimates later. Determine the cause of the divergence. What can be the cause of divergence? Mr. Ini was, asking me, earlier, what may be the reason why my analogous estimate may be very far from the bills of quantity. These are some of the reasons. The scope of the project may not have been adequately understood or may have been misinterpreted. So, Mr. Ini, it's actually possible that when the QS was breaking the work down, it's possible for a QS to miss a major part. I will repeat again. It's possible for a QS to miss a major part. Now, let me unshare, right, and explain this, right? Mr. Ini, I've had course for a QS. Someone here who knows what I'm talking about brought something, and myself and my team sat down and we discovered that the structural drawing had, I can't remember, maybe 24 beams or so. So when we're trying to see what is wrong, the QS was so sure it's correct. I was so sure that something was wrong. I was so sure. So we discovered that the QS actually counted, for some reason, 96 beams. So he was using 96 beams in the estimate. Can you see? So what has he done now? He has added to the scope of the work. So this can be a major cause of divergent. So sometimes QSs are human beings too. So sometimes it's good if I have any QS. I think I have about 3 QSs. Sukomi is a QS. Mr. Rashid is a QS. Okay, I think I have 2 QSs here. Now, most times I want to advise you QSs, please always don't, did I use the word chop alone, die alone now? Always get another person to look at your work, study your drawing. If you are given a work to do, please, why not get a team of architects and engineers to sit with you? Why not even pay a civil engineer a token to generate BEME for you? Because sometimes structural drawings, a QS may have experience to read it. I'm not doubting it, an architectural drawing. But sometimes you will need an engineer to actually carry the structure and interpret for you and say, oh, this thing, this structural engineer indicated here, this is what it means. It means you should use 100 length of Y16. It means you should do this. It means you should do that. But sometimes some QSs, you don't want to engage engineers to do BEME for them because of the little money they will pay them. Just sometimes you can even have friends and relationships. So as a project manager, please watch the kind of QSs you use. Let them have engineers in that. If not, once your scope is not adequately understood, or the scope or the design is misinterpreted, there is like bound to be divergent estimate. The function and activity breakdown is not accurate. Yes, activity breakdown can also, what am I doing here now? Breaking my activities down into 1.1, 1.2, 2.1, 2.2, I'm breaking down. So if I break down wrongly, it can affect me. Like I said, those of you around Abuja, you can invite me to your office to look at some things if you have challenges or some of these things. I will come. For everybody participating in this class, if you invite me once, I will come for free and consult for you. But after once, you will pay me for consultancy. I will tell you what my consultancy fee is later. Because so these are some of the reasons why we can have divergent estimate. Then our historical record use may now become obsolete, right? I've said it before. It can be obsolete or misapplied. Mr. Saundo is there. Mr. Saundo taught me something recently. He's a project accountant, experienced one at that. So he told me that, no, if I want to mark up my project, or we want to mark up our project by inflation, we are not supposed to use current inflation and just mark up our cost. We are supposed to use difference in inflation. So these are data. When data is obsolete or misapplied, it can lead to divergent estimate. I am analogously estimating a project that will be done now with the one I did in 2021, and I want to apply inflationary figures on it. If I misapply it, it can be a cause of divergent, estimate, right? So with that, I think I want to stop here. Project scheduling, I will continue from here in my next class before we do MS project, so that I can take few questions. Okay, after project scheduling is MS project. Then after that, thank you. Question and answer. We have how many more minutes? Wow, this is 6:28. So maybe to help me well, let me see how many persons have questions first. Then I will know how many minutes I will give each of us. If you have questions, can you indicate whether you raise your hand, chat box, or unmute yourself? Okay, Mr. Rashid, one. Any other person?
Yeah, I think I have a question.
Okay, so Mr. Ini, two. Mr. Johnson. Mr. Johnson, are you clapping or is a raise of hand? Okay, you are clapping. Okay. So let me go. Mr. Rashid, let's take your question quickly.
Yes, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yes, sir. Likewise, you mentioned that some quantities of yours, like we misinterpret. You are actually right. But the thing is that, after the bill of quantity, we used to prepare our material and labor schedule. And most times, material and labor schedule, I think material and labor schedule is more or less than scheduling, giving each of our tasks, like giving cost to some of the tasks, giving cost to the material, and giving cost to labor. My question now is that mostly like as a project manager now,
Yeah.
it is actually fine before we arrive at all those things. it is advisable like to get our project management stuff first before delving into all those preparing the material and labor and everything. Can you get me, sir?
Yes, I'm following.
Okay, that's the question.
Okay. Now, what I would say, right? All the QSs that have worked with me, I don't, even if it means paying you a little bit more, right? I won't accept just a bill of quantity from you. Because a bill of quantity, as far as I'm concerned, sometimes it can be copied and pasted. So sometimes I will insist on, like Mr. Rashid said, a material and labor schedule. A bill of quantity, what it does most time is, it tells you cubic meter, it tells you tons. They will be telling you iron, this ton is sold as so thousand. It's actually difficult to relate with it. If I pass a bill of quantity to my procurement officers or procurement office, they will not be able to do procurement. It's useless to them. No, but not entirely useless. My procurement officer will need to be a quantity surveyor to be able to use bills of quantity to go to the market to buy material for my project. So I will insist that you put it into material and labor schedule. I have learned how to not just do bills of quantity, but I've learned to carry bills of quantity and break it into material and labor schedules by myself. That everybody that works in my office, if you work under me, you must be able to do it, because that is where you get the real figures from, and you know that it's very accurate. So if a quantity tell you is so cubic meter, I will insist this cubic meter, how many bags of cement are inside, how many wheelbarrow or head pans. So if I am working in Lagos where they use head pans, I will insist that you tell me how many head pans are in a your cubic meter you have estimated as a QS. I will insist if I'm working in Nasarawa here, they use wheelbarrows and buckets. I think in Abuja they use wheelbarrow and I think buckets too, right? So I will insist to tell me in this cubic meter how many wheelbarrow. It's easy for a lay foreman or mason on site to interpret. That's it for me. And then for our layman procurement officers, who sometimes can just, maybe they're inventory experts or finance experts, they may not be construction related, but they are good procurement guys, right? So they should be able to interpret it. So it's good, Mr. Rashid, as a QS, you have two QSs in this team. Mr. Rashid is a QS, Mr. Sukomi is a QS. Please, after your bills of quantity, do a material schedule, do a labor schedule. Now, while you are doing material and labor schedule, you discover that, like I was breaking that project into different tasks. You carry foundation 1.1. What is the task of 1.1? Maybe concrete footing. Concrete footing, how many bags of cement? Concrete footing, how many wheelbarrow of granite? Concrete footing, how many wheelbarrow of sharp sand? Concrete footing, am I putting wire mesh inside? How many quantity? Is it a 4 by 8 feet wire mesh? 4 by 8 is 1.2 by 2.4. Then you need to know your environment. Do they understand feet or do they understand meter? QSs should help us and put it that way. When you put it that way, it's easy for project managers to actually relate with their foremen and laymen. So please, I want to encourage us to do that. Yes, it's a good practice, Mr. Rashid. Thank you for bringing that up. Mr. Ini, you are up next.
Okay, thank you very much.
I can't hear anything.
Some of my.
Can you go back like 30 seconds?
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Okay, I was just saying that Mr. Rashid's question actually was in line with some of what I wanted to ask too as well. So I got a lot from the conversation right now. So if I can just add like a B part to it.
Okay, great. Go ahead.
If I can just add like a B part to it. So for example, now this what the description you have on the board, like the experience that you had between the 24 beams and 96 beams, how were you able to spot that difference? Is it due to your experience?
Great.
Because
yes,
like you said now, so okay, go on.
Great. Because I've worked a foundation or a story building that has a 50 to 70 square meter footprint, right, has a particular ton and number of reinforcement bars that I expect to see. From experience, like I said, I will always like, when I'm initiating the project, this breaking down into bottom-up estimation is during planning stage. You do it. Yesterday, I took us through project life cycle. You do these details during planning. By then, you have been commissioned, you have been authorized, you have signed MOU, you have been mobilized to site. You have resources. You won't stand the risk of wasting 1 month to do something, and then the client will now say it's above me. So during the initiation phase of the project, I have analogously estimated that, okay, this story building should cost me, I will give myself an idea, even if I'm not asked. I'll just write, what's an idea of foundation, what's an idea of this. So if the bill of quantity come out, it is a personal practice. Most others don't do it, they'll just run with the bills of quantity. But I will just put it upon myself to say, okay, why was my own not correct? It will help me next time to know whether to jettison my past data or past assumptions and pick on this new one. So that was what led me to quiz it, to say that no, this house we can't be spending this almost, I'm almost more than double on beams. I was wrong. Let's see where the problem is. So we started looking at item by item. We now discovered that one was overloaded. Don't forget that one of the material, I don't know if it's part of what I gave you. I said something about PMO, Project Management Office. In my experience right now, I set up and manage the PMO. Any standard organization that does projects that is above 500 million should actually have a PMO. So if you don't have a project management office in your organization, you may want to contract me to set one up for you. So this project management office is like knowledge repository for every organization. So how did I get to detect that, Mr. Indy? This is what I did to detect that. During my project closure report, before I file for every project in the repository, in the project management office repository, this is what I do. I will carry, for example, if cost of superstructure is maybe I spend 50 million, for example, superstructure. Superstructure for a story building include block wall, it includes the beam, it includes the column. What else do we have in superstructure? Okay, let me just stop here and maybe the slab, right? A first floor slab, right? Let me just say I have this and I spend 50 million. Let's assume I spend 10 here. This is just an assumption. I spent 15 here, I spent 15 here, and I spent 10 here, right? Before I how do I put now? Before I file my closure report, I will just try and do a percentage. This is about 20%. This is about, let's say 25 or 30%. This is about 30. This is about another 20. So I have a rough estimate that, and if I have done it for one project, two projects, and the percentage are similar, and most times the percentages are similar. That's just it. See, project management is a structured approach to managing projects. It is predictive. You can predict and you can repeat. If you cannot predict and you cannot repeat it, you are probably not using a structured approach. Once the approach is structured, it's predictable and it's repeatable. You understand? So we call it iteration in project management. When you want to do this, there's what we call the iterative nature of projects. Projects have an iterative nature. It's beyond the scope of this class. That's why I didn't talk about it yesterday. So if I know that a beam should be about 30% of cost of superstructure, and I have a bills of quantity from experience, I've done it 1, 2, 3, 4, Mr. Ini, and I have a QS who is very respected and experienced too. And I'm trying to discover something, and I put it into spreadsheet. QS is used, so it's easy. It's just to create a new column, enter your formula, and it doesn't take you 10 seconds. Spreadsheet runs it for you. And I just see that that under normal circumstances shouldn't be more than 30% of superstructure is taking 70% of the cost. It's a red flag. Then I will now carry beam, isolate beam, carry my drawing, carry my design, and say, no, could it be that this quantity? So that was how I discovered it, Mr. Ini. It was past record. The percentage was just way too high. So I narrowed down on it. That was a red flag for me. And I picked the drawings and the structural drawings with my team. And we discovered that the beams were overestimated. Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Please, can I just add another small thing, if you don't mind? Or is there somebody else after me asking a question?
Okay, yeah. Okay, let me quickly answer this. Iterative, ITERATIVE. ITERATIVE. You can check that out. Oh, Mr. Deji. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I'm coming, Mr. Ini. I'll ask you. I'm going through the chat box. Let me just see. Mr. Deji. Oh, you went there. Okay, Mr. Deji, what I'm going to do, I'll share slide today, and I promise you, give me till Tuesday morning. I will upload these 2 videos and share the link with you, please. Then you can have time to watch the video before the next class. Then if you have any gray area after watching the video, Mr. Deji, on Wednesday, on Thursday, you can book a 30-minute appointment with me. Friday, I have a meeting in the afternoon, but morning on Friday, I'm also free. We can have Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. 30 minutes on any of these days, I can quickly brush you through any gray area when you watch the video. All right, Mr. Ini, let's have your last question, then we can close the class. We are 12 minutes behind.
Okay, so okay, sorry. So I just wanted to say, would you advise that, like, someone should have maybe more than one QS when they're trying to get the BOQ and the work breakdown and labor schedule? Just so that you're the right, just so that at least you get the figures on the right, accurately.
Okay, no.
Because why I'm asking that is because maybe previously I had an experience whereby we're trying to get the best figure or amount for a project, right? And then the QS that we had used at the time, he was, bent on his numbers, and we believed that we could get it much lower without compromising on quality. But he just kept on, going on and on about this and that, this and that, this and that. So we had to eventually reach out to somebody else to do the same work, and he gave us something substantial, something good. So,
and it worked.
Yes, it did. It did.
Okay, good. While it may not be necessary to use more than one QS, but if you have your doubts, of course, you go ahead.
Yeah.
Once you have your doubt, I didn't go back to another QS, but I pointed the QS to the error because of my own experience in the field. But if you are not that experienced, you can get it doubt. Or you contact a project manager who is experienced and can just look at the figures for you. Once I carry a bill and I look at the figure, first thing I will do is I'll just carry the total multiply. If the square meter area is not looking like what it should be, there's actually an acceptable range. The QS in the house will tell us. I've gone to do presentations in government organizations, and they'll bring in their technical guys. And because once it's technical, there's a range that it is acceptable around maybe Abuja, for example. There is that range for a particular kind of housing. So within that range. So once somebody is giving you something, and except it's a special project that the client has a special scope. Yeah. All right. Let me take a question in the chat box. Being a QS and with the experience I had with those in the technical, I don't work with BOQ again. It's really good talking to you to follow up with the bottom-up person. Yes. So this is a QS saying he no longer uses BOQ method again. It just goes straight and it does material and labor schedule. Yes. Mr. Sukomi has done some work for me. So just go to material labor. It helps you to populate it into your MS project at the back end. We will see that next class. So, Mr. Ini, it is the QS is giving you a BOQ or material and labor schedule, but the person that breaks down into WBS is actually you, the project manager. Because it gives you control of how you want to manage and work, right? So that's that about that. So thank you, Mr. Sukomi, for making that comment. It's good QSs, please know how to do material and labor schedule. It makes our work easier. All right, with this, I think I will no longer be able to take any more questions tonight. If you have any more questions, go to the platform and drop it there, our WhatsApp platform. I will take my time and answer you on the WhatsApp platform. Or you can DM me privately and we will schedule not more than 30 minutes Zoom session within the week before our next class. Let me see. I didn't give any assignment yesterday. I want to give one today. Are we ready? Now, I'm joining assignment 1 and 2 together. It's on the screen. It's also on the WhatsApp platform, so you don't need to copy. Imagine a project of your choice as a project manager, right? Now, don't answer the part of what will be the next steps. Imagine a project manager, a project of your choice as a project manager. Stop there, then jump to assignment 2. Create a WBS for any of the projects. Because I've not gone to MS project, I've not introduced you to it. I wouldn't want you to do that. So imagine a project of your choice, whether it's real life happening now or you are imagining it. If you have any real project ongoing now, use it as example, right? Then create a WBS for that project. Everybody will do before we start, I will give everybody 90 seconds. That's 1.5 minutes. No, 90 seconds is too small. 3 minutes to do a presentation 3 times. Even if 3 times, average of, how many are we today? 12, right? 13. 3 times 30%, that's 39 minutes, right? So everybody will have 3 minutes next week, Saturday, to present his project and his WBS. Then I will pick one of those projects and one of the projects we are bringing next week. That's what we are going to use to practice our MS projects. You understand the assignment? Pick a project of your choice, whether it's real life, you are working on it now, or it's imaginary. Then do a WBS for that project. Break it down into the smallest work package, and then bring it on Saturday. You will present it. You will share your screen. If you are using a laptop, you share your screen. If you cannot share your screen, send it to, drop it on the WhatsApp group. I will help you project it in class. Then at the end of the day, out of these 12 or 13 of us, I will pick one of those projects that I feel it was substantially broken down into the lower package. We will use that as the practical for our MS project training next week, Saturday. Is that okay?
Yes.
All right.
Yes, sir.
Great. So with that, we've come to the end of today's class. I wish you a lovely weekend. And thank you once again for coming to class today.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. God bless you.
Thank you, sir.